I'm caught between surrendering and changing my life. I'm feeling lost between stillness and ambition. Is this peace, or am I avoiding my power? In this episode, I will tell you more about my journey concerning this dilemma and wanting to find freedom from it. Welcome to Avant-Garde Odyssey. I've had this deep dilemma as to these are very two contradictory wisdoms, but they are both wisdoms. One is accept what is, and the other one is you can change your life. And I don't mean just inside you. I mean you can affect your 3D life. I have been aware of these two things, but recently I have experienced a great sense of defeat, a great sense of there is nothing I can do about it anymore. And it's kind of true that I can do nothing about it anymore in the way I understand it, in the way that is represented in my life. That sense of defeat I have found great comfort in cultivating my acceptance of what is, in finding that stillness inside me to embrace a situation that is the opposite of what I would have ever wanted, dreamt of, or imagined. I have found great comfort in accepting the situation, in learning to accept. And I don't regret it, not one bit. But something that has happened at the same time, in the background, is that my desire to create something I want, to create something I dream of, is nowhere to be seen. And that bothers me. At some level, that bothers me. So, for example, when I meditate, I focus on my heart. I want to feel peace. I want to feel joy. I want to feel motivation. But I'm unable to focus on my intention, on that electric part that is able to collapse that particle and make something that is in my mind, make it real. And that has been bothering me for months now, to the point that I don't even know what it is that I dream of. Really fully, you know. I mean, yeah, I can tell you things that I would like and I'm not afraid to say, but the big ones, they remain hidden. And I've been reaching out to spiritual teachers, and one of the things that I had never ever done before in my life, like 100%, was to accept what is and make that the main character of my whole show, you know, to accept what is as it comes, as you remain still. And accepting what is a beautiful thing, because you start to see that what is not what you thought it was. Actually, what is so huge and filled with colors and eternity itself that it's really cool to sit and contemplate what has happened, what is now. And you'll never run out of new information that comes to you to fill in that definition of what is. And I really think that's a deeply truthful spiritual journey. But at the same time, I have felt inside myself a resistance to want to change things. I've been so invested accepting what is that the remote idea and remembrance of changing the world, changing my life, changing or affecting other people's lives has diminished. That force that has always been with me, I don't even see it in me anymore. And I don't know if it's just me, but every time I've asked this question to a spiritual teacher, they have never answered it directly. And I wonder why, because I know there is meaning in that. However, though, I recently got some very juicy information from someone that I consider a mentor, and that said something that kind of answered my question. Again, maybe in an indirect way, but I felt a glimpse of the answer. And that is why I'm doing this video today. There are two concepts that I have always found. It's like two schools of thought, two schools of experience of life. And I'm not saying there are two, but I have always, in my mind, split them like two. Because these things, at some level, seem contradictory to me. One thing is, accept what is and find the peace there. Accepting what is something that takes a lifetime, because this is very important. What is what is? There is an American expression that you hear people say often, and it is what it is. Yes, okay, I understand that, but what is it? So this is the key of that philosophy. By willing to accept what is, we open our senses, extrasensory even, to information about what is, because we have a very limiting perception of what is. When something happens in the exterior world, but that affects you, relationships, events, circumstances, there is like a cultural categorization of what that is. Now, accepting what is implies to go beyond what you first think it is and receive information about the whole picture. The whole picture is really infinite, but the whole picture has a divinity to it. And that's the perception that we want to arrive to. Needless to say, that is definitely gonna bring kind of enlightenment and feelings of peace and compassion and tolerance and joy and unity. And that is, I think, in my experience, I find that to be true. And that is a path that I never want to give up, because that path is a higher path. No matter how difficult it may seem to do that, it's definitely something that opens your vision and can move you. Now there is the other school, the other concept that is very spiritual and that I also find it to be true, is that I create my own reality. I can even manifest specific events in my life. Of course, very important is that as long as it's for the good of everybody involved, it's key to have this core fundamental vision in everything that we do. Manifesting is something that freaks us out because we don't entirely believe that we can manifest. That's why we're not manifesting quick enough or a lot enough. And that part of the work about creating your reality is to unwire those beliefs that take the power away from you, and rewire your brain to believe differently, to see differently, to envision differently. And I believe that to be true. However, it is, it's almost like I have to change the mode to a science fiction mode, which, by the way, it's real. But it's hard to believe it's real because they have already given us science fiction as something outside reality. So for me, these two concepts have been highly contradictory to the level that it's hard to focus on one without the other one bothering me. My conflict has probably nothing to do with whatever it is about, but it's an energy and a tension that is inside me. So it's like an energy is pulling me this way and an energy is pulling me that way. That's where the real issue is. It doesn't matter how I call these two energies. It's a resistance that I have to just keep in the middle. I might translate those energies as surrender or creating my own life. But at the end of the day, what's happening is that tension and conflict is keeping me unable to take a step in any direction. The answer to my dilemma, I don't think it resides in whether it's A or B. The answer in my dilemma is contained in that tension, in two energies opposite each other and create this tension in me. In other words, any conflict that we experience is not about what it is, although you can learn about that, certain elements that are going to help you, but it's really about an energetic tension, an energetic, let's say, entity wants to be born out of that yin and yang. And that's where the answer is. That tension is not confusion, it's that human edge where something is about to be born. In other words, the answer is in that space of emptiness that is between accepting what is and creating my life as I want it. Between those two separate things, there is a void, there is a space in between. And that same void is carried to both parts of those two concepts. And that's where the answer is. It's in the space between the two. So what's the space, the nothing, between these two? That's the real subtext that I want to find out. And that's what I have discovered in the last couple of days. There is two things that someone said that gave me a hint, a glimpse of the answer. One was a study that, forgive me for not quoting exactly where this was done, but it was at some place in California where they measure frequencies when people are meditating. And they did a study where they put some people meditating to change the DNA. The first thing they told them was to just focus on visualizing the DNA changing. And they did that. They focused on that image, visualizing the end result, and nothing happened. Then they did another test in which the people meditating had to focus on their heart, on joy, happiness, love for life, all elevated emotions in the heart. No intention, just like feeling amazing. And the DNA didn't change. And then they did the experiment where people focused both on the intention, the thought, the image of the DNA changing, the visualization, and on the heart, the elevated emotions of joy and happiness, both at the same time. And the DNA changed. That to me was a revelation. We are not just meant to find that divine joy in us. We are meant to do, to change, to make change, to create revolutions, to create events and happenings. And we could explore this further, but that gave me permission to say, yes, I can do that. I can change things. Yes, we are meant to feel great, but we are meant to have a vision and follow the path to that vision, no matter what happens. That's deep. This was one of the things that was very revelatory to me, and coupled with the next thing. The next thing is, I did a course about manifestation and meditation. And one thing the teacher said was like, you just keep going. No matter if it takes you 2 weeks and you see no results, no matter if it takes you 3 weeks, you just keep going and you don't pay attention to whatever is happening outside you. And this is radical. This is a very radical concept. And I think that's the difficulty, the radicality of it. We are not used to be radical. We can be extreme, but radical means from the root. You do something 100% and you stick to the fundamental truth about it. And another thing that caught my attention is that he said something like, some people have lost everything in their lives. And yet, they see the beauty of life every day. And this is very simple, but it opened my eyes to finding that space between these two philosophies. They are not two. I've made them to be two. The answers can be summed up in these questions. Where do I let go and where do I rise up? When is surrender wisdom and when is it hiding? Can I both accept and act? It's easy to sometimes confuse surrender with giving up fully. It's easy to confuse acceptance with not dreaming again. But if we do that, we're only going 50%. We're missing on the real truth. the space between the two that connects them. It's key to redefine any concept that just doesn't sit well somewhere in the body, because we're not going to be with a clear direction, and clarity is actually a wonderful thing to have and to receive, because with clarity everything is really easy, much easier, smoother, transparent, and bigger, more magnificent, as it really is. We see things more like they really are. So the answer is going from surrender to fire, never forgetting true surrender, and yet being one with the fire. Going from floating in some kind of limbo to a grounded sense of intention and attention to one's vision. From, oh, maybe this is what life wants from me, to, I'm going to meet me. Acceptance of what is begs the exploration of what it is that it really is. And that takes a great deal of humility and a great deal of courage, which is the same word really. And it also takes a very experimental oriented attitude. And that is not in contradiction with making a real change in the world that can be seen and touched with the senses. There is nothing wrong with manifesting things in the lowest frequency there is, which is matter. Because at the end of the day, matter carries the energy of the intangible anyway. The last couple of days have been so revelatory for me, because now what I feel right now is trying to find that space, that nothingness, that void between these two ramifications of spiritual teachings that seem to be split from each other. That space is where I have been focusing on the last couple of days. And the way I feel right now when I look at that void is, I surrender to the truth that I need to rise. I surrender to the truth that I need to rise. That integration has made my week. And I hope that this can help you if you've ever encountered this at a conscious level or a subconscious level. Maybe this will resonate with you. I'd love to hear about your experiences on this matter. I think this conversation is something that can really illuminate a lot of us. After my slow drift to surrender, I'm experiencing a quiet reawakening to desire. And I love it. I encourage you to always, always keep searching, because if there is something that has worked out for me, it's my willingness to keep searching. No matter how confusing everything seems, there is something very powerful in all of us, and that's willingness. And it has to do with free will. And free will is freedom. Nobody, no one, no thing, no place and nowhere can that be taken away from us?